All right. So today we are going to discuss very important topic in endocrinology, that is thyroid gland. Okay. Now, whenever we are talking about thyroid, we are actually dealing with you know one of the hotspot for BMR control and all this. Okay. We are talking about thyroid gland. Now, when we are talking about thyroid gland, the first thing you need to understand is this: the thyroid gland has got its name from a Latin word which means shield. Okay, thyroid in Latin means shield. Okay, that means this particular gland is present as a shield in front of our windpipe. Okay, now listen with all your attention. Suppose if I draw that this is our larynx. This is our larynx. Okay, and these are our cartilages. Now the first point we have to understand is this: the thyroid glands are actually attached with thyroid cartilage. Okay, clear? They are actually attached with thyroid cartilage. Now listen with all your attention. So this is suppose our thyroid gland. Okay, this is suppose our thyroid gland. Now a very important point here we need to understand is this: that these are actually thyroid glands. Now listen with all your attention. Actually these are the what? Thyroid gland proper. Okay, now these thyroid glands are actually connected by this segment which is called isthmus. Okay, this is isthmus. Okay, this is called isthmus. Clear? This is its isthmus. Now, so this is our so if I stand like this, so this is our what? Right thyroid gland, and this is our left thyroid gland. Okay, or right thyroid lobe and left thyroid lobe. Now listen with all your attention. A very important point here we need to understand is this: that thyroid glands are supplied by two main arteries. Okay, thyroid glands are supplied by actually two main arteries, which is called superior thyroid artery. One is called superior thyroid artery, another one is called inferior thyroid artery. Clear? One is called superior thyroid artery. Okay, another one is called inferior thyroid artery. I'm not going into the details of this anatomy because we will be dealing with anatomy later. Clear? Now listen. So this is superior thyroid arteries. These are superior thyroid arteries, and these are inferior thyroid arteries. Now listen with all your attention. Superior thyroid arteries superior thyroid arteries actually comes from carotid arteries. Clear? Carotid artery. Clear? So superior thyroid, what is the source of superior thyroid artery? They are actually the branching of carotid artery. Okay, to be very specific, right carotid arteries and left carotid arteries. Okay, now listen with all your attention. What is the source of this inferior thyroid artery? So what is the source of this inferior thyroid arteries, right? Now listen. Now, inferior thyroid artery actually comes from inferior thyroid artery actually comes from subclavian artery. Clear? Inferior thyroid artery actually comes from right subclavian artery. To be very specific, right subclavian artery. Now listen with all your attention. We are not going to details of these all anatomy right now. Okay. So this is actually the anatomy of this. Okay. Now, if you look at the posterior aspect of this thyroid gland, if you look at the posterior aspect of this thyroid gland, so this is suppose your right lobe. Suppose this is your right lobe, okay, and this is the isthmus, and this is suppose your left lobe. Now listen, if you look from behind, you will get these glands. What are these glands? These are nothing but your parathyroid glands. That means parathyroid glands are present in the posterior aspect of your thyroid glands. Clear? Okay, clear? Okay. So now we will be talking about the histology, okay, or the internal decorations of thyroid gland. Okay, thyroid glands. Suppose this is your thyroid gland. Okay, suppose this is your isthmus. Okay, and this is suppose your thyroid gland. Now listen, if you get a transverse section of this, then what you will get is you will get this portion, right? Now these portions actually are made up of okay, these portion actually made up of these things, and in between these cells, in between these things there are some cells called, these are called parafollicular cells. Okay, these are called parafollicular cells. Parafollicular cells. Okay, and these are called, these structures are called, these structures are known by the name of thyroid follicle. Okay, these structures are known by the name of thyroid follicle. Clear? So these are parafollicular cells and these are thyroid follicular cells. Thyroid follicles. Now listen with all your attention. We'll actually look deep down into the thyroid follicles, and we will see how these thyroid follicular cells actually helps in formation of thyroid gland hormones or thyrohormones. Okay. So suppose this is your so this is your thyroid follicle. Okay, this is a section of your thyroid follicle. Clear? Now here is your blood. Clear? So here is your blood vessel. Now listen with all your attention. What will happen here is this, that first thing you need to understand is this: for thyroid hormone synthesis we need several steps and several ingredients. First understand this: for thyroid hormone synthesis we need several ingredients as well as several steps. Now listen with all your attention. We will learn this whole process, this whole complex process step by step, step by step. Why? Because it is important for you to understand that at each and every stage there are other hormones which are actually influencing, okay, these small steps. Okay, now listen with all your attention. What happens is this, that the thyroid hormone synthesis starts from, or the thyroid hormone synthesis starts when iodide enters from GIT. Now listen. So this is suppose your GIT, okay? So this is your GIT. Now from GIT, iodide enters the bloodstream, okay? From GIT, iodide enters the bloodstream. Now listen with all your attention. What happens here is this: after the entrance of iodide, what happens is this, you need to understand this right now, that this iodide will have to pass through this particular two membranes and it will come here, okay? Now what happens is this, that there is a protein channel, which actually carries out this function, that is this protein channel actually carries out iodine together with 2 sodium. Now listen with all your attention. It will carry in iodine molecule or iodide molecules, okay, together with 2 Na plus. Clear? 2 Na plus. So what we are seeing here is this, that iodide is entering with the help of what? Sodium. So this is what? Sodium and iodide what? Symporter, right? Now, as it is known by the name of sodium iodide symporter, therefore it has a nickname which is more popular, which is NIS. Here in this NIS, N stands for sodium, okay, sodium iodide symporter. Clear? So with the help of NIS or sodium iodide transporter, sodium as well as iodine enters. Now listen, entry of sodium is not good for cell when the cell is in your resting state, right? Now the problem you need to understand is this, that this sodium should be thrown out, right? Now this sodium, if you want to throw out this sodium, what you will have to do is this, you will have to activate another protein. Clear? You will have to activate another protein which will throw out 3 sodium and will take in, 2 potassium, right? 3 sodium and 2 potassium. Now a very important point here we need to understand is this, that when 3 sodium is moving in, that means this sodium will now try to enter more, right? Due to its what? The concentration of sodium outside the cell is higher, right? The concentration of sodium outside the cell is higher, right? And therefore, as the concentration of sodium outside the cell is higher, therefore, due to its natural electrical gradient, sodium will always try to enter, right? And when this particular sodium iodide symporter or NIS will be active, that is when sodium is entering, then what happens is this, iodine will also start entering with the help of NIS. That means this is one of the way by which iodine enters the cell, okay? Now this is very important. Okay? Now this process of entrance of iodine Now this process of entrance of iodine into the follicular cell, these are follicular cells, right? Into the follicular cell is called iodine trapping. This is called iodine trapping. Clear? This is called iodine trapping. Okay. Now, very now important point you need to understand is this. So this is step number 1. Okay. This is step number 1. Now, here we need to understand another thing. Okay, that is the formation of thyroid hormones, that is T3, T4, whatever it is, okay, actually takes place in the follicular cell, no doubt about this. Actually takes place in the follicular cell, but their precursors, that is the product, the main product from which these hormones are produced, they are actually produced in the what? They are actually processed in this follicle space. Okay. Now that means what you will have to do is you will have to send this iodine here. So you will have to send your iodine molecule into the follicle, because it has reached what? Follicular cells. You will have to send them into the follicle. Okay, you will have to send the iodine now into the follicle. Now listen with all your attention. An important protein is present here, which will actually help in this transport. An important protein is present here, which will actually help in this transport of iodine or iodide from follicular cell into the follicle. Clear? Or follicular lumen. Now this protein is known by the name of pendrin. This protein is known by the name of pendrin. Now what is the role of pendrin? Pendrin actually transfers iodide. Pendrin actually transfers iodide into the follicular lumen. Clear? Pendrin actually transfers iodine, transfers iodine or iodide, again I am doing wrong, spelling it wrong, iodide into the follicle, right? Okay. Now a very important point here we need to understand is this iodide is actually negatively charged. Now this pendrin will actually in return take chloride or any other anion from the follicle. Clear? Okay. So this is the role of pendrin or exchanger protein present in the apical membrane of follicular cells. Now what is apical membrane and what is basolateral membrane? Now listen, if I tell you now that this is the apical membrane, if you are confused, now listen with all your attention. How to determine which is the apical membrane and how to determine which is the basolateral membrane? Suppose if I tell you that this is your basolateral, if I tell you that this is your basolateral membrane, you will always hear these terms, okay, in your books and everywhere, but you don't probably know what are these. Now listen, what do you mean by apical membrane and basolateral membrane? Now you don't know what is actually apical membrane and basolateral membrane. Now listen, don't be confused. To understand or to end the confusion between apical membrane and basolateral membrane, understand this very basic thing. Basolateral membrane is the membrane of a cell facing the blood vessel. That's it. First understand this basolateral membrane. Why? Because the opposite membrane of basolateral membrane is the apical membrane. That's it. Basolateral membrane is the membrane of cells, cell membrane of cells facing the blood vessel. So now you know what is, you know, apical membrane and basolateral membrane, right? Okay. Now, up to now what we have seen, that up to now GI tract has actually, you know, absorbed iodide, and this iodide has been, you know, transported into the follicular cells, and iodide now comes into the follicle. Now, for the, you know, transport of iodide from GI to into the, you know, follicular cells, we need actually the main protein we need is sodium iodide transporter, that is NIS. Okay. Now, with the help of pendrin molecule or pendrin protein, what happens is this, that this protein actually, you know, carries iodide from follicular cell into the follicle or follicular lumen, and in exchange chloride or any, you know, negative ion enters the cell. Okay. Now listen. So what are these? So this is your, you know, gene with its, you know, controlling elements, that is promoters. Okay. Now listen with all your attention. This is a gene which will actually produce an mRNA, right? Which will actually produce an mRNA, and from this mRNA a huge protein will appear. A huge protein will appear. What is that? The name of this protein is thyroglobulin. Thyroglobulin. Okay. A huge protein will appear, that is called thyroglobulin. Now listen, thyroglobulin is almost 600 kilodalton in weight. Clear? Thyroglobulin is almost 600 kilodalton in weight. So it's a huge protein. Clear? Now how to compare? Now listen. You know what is the, you know, weight of this sodium iodide transporter? The weight of this sodium iodide, or the molecular weight of this sodium iodide importer, is only 65 kilodalton. Okay. So now you can guess what is the, you know, what is the massive structure of this thyroglobulin. Now a very important point is this, that for the rest of our lecture we will be talking about thyroglobulin and we will be denoting it as Tg. Okay. Now listen. So thyroglobulin is a, you know, big protein. Okay. Now you need to understand is this, that suppose you have already read these things in your, you know, molecular biology class, that, you know, suppose this, okay, and this is your what? Golgi bodies. Now a very important point you need to understand is this, that whenever mRNA comes out of this, now you need to understand is this, that this mRNA now will try to, you know, suppose this is an mRNA. Okay. Now this mRNA will try to, you know, attach with what? This mRNA will try to attach with a ribosome, and here a protein will be produced, right? Here a protein will be produced. Now this protein will come into, you know, this protein will come into cis Golgi. So this is cis Golgi, right? Now you know how to, you know, name Golgi apparatuses, that is the Golgi phase which is facing the, you know, endopacific reticulum is cis Golgi. The Golgi phase which is facing the, you know, cell membrane is called trans Golgi. Okay. Now listen with all your attention. So this is trans Golgi. Okay. Now a very important point you need to understand is this, that so when mRNA is translated into a protein, suppose this is the protein. Okay. Suppose this is the protein. Suppose this is the protein. Okay. Now you need to understand this very basic thing, that is, if I, you know, magnify this, you know, vesicle, you will learn something different. You know, you will know something different. Now let me, you know, erase this part and I will draw the vesicle here, because this vesicle is really, really important. This vesicle here is really, really important. Now listen. If I draw this vesicle, now listen. Suppose this is a vesicle. Okay. Now you know that every vesicle is made up of what? Every vesicle is made up of what? Phospholipid bilayer, right? Because every, you know, membrane is actually nothing but phospholipid bilayer. So this is, suppose your, you know, so this is your, you know, your phospholipid bilayer membrane. Why I am drawing this I will tell you later. Okay. It's very, very important for you to understand now. So this is, you know, here. This is your, you know, phospholipid bilayer membrane. Okay. Now a very important point you need to understand is this. So this is your, you know, thyroglobulin protein. Okay, this is suppose your thyroglobulin protein. Now a very important point you need to understand right now is this, that there is a trick, you know, those vesicles in which thyroglobulins are packed, they not only contains thyroglobulin, they also contain another transmembrane protein. Okay, now listen with all your attention, it's very important. So this is what, this is suppose the N terminal and C terminal of your thyroglobulin molecule. Now listen, those vesicles in which thyroglobulins are packed, they also contains another, you know, protein which is present okay. So those vesicles which contain thyroglobulin, they also contains another protein. Okay, now listen, this protein is actually, this protein, now listen with all your attention, this protein is actually a very very important enzyme. This protein is actually a very very important enzyme. You know what is the name of this enzyme? You will know it. Okay, this is known by the name of thyroid peroxidase. Clear? This is the thyroid peroxidase molecule. Now listen with all your attention. Now a very very important point you need to understand is this, the suppose there are many, you know, thyroid peroxidase molecule in one, you know, suppose this is, you know, another thyroid peroxidase molecule. Okay, suppose this is another thyroid peroxidase molecule. Okay, so there are several thyroid peroxidase molecules associated with it. Okay, now a very very important point you need to understand here is this, that now a very very important point you need to understand here is this, that these thyroid peroxidase molecules, now listen, if I draw thyroid peroxidase molecule here, suppose this is your one of the molecule of thyroid peroxidase. Now listen, now these are actually, these domains are actually the active domains. That means they are actually the catalytic domains. Okay, they are actually, and they are just, and this domain is actually helping in just tethering of this particular, you know, membrane. Okay, now a very very important point here you need to understand is this, that means the active domains or the enzymatic domains of thyroid peroxidase. Okay, the enzymatic domain of thyroid peroxidase, what are these? Thyroid peroxidase. Okay, now the enzymatic domain of thyroid peroxidase, that means is within the vesicular lumen. Clear? Within the vesicle itself. Okay, now what happens is this, suppose this is, you know, what, thyroglobulin molecule, and these are what, thyroid peroxidase molecule, right? So what happens is this, suppose when this, you know, protein comes here and this all, now what happens is this, when this, you know, final vesicle is released from the, you know, trans-Golgi network, what happens is this, now what happens is this, when this combines with, when this vesicle combines with, you know, this membrane, when this vesicle combines with this membrane, what happens is this, this thyroglobulin molecule, I am drawing a short thyroglobulin molecule because I will be drawing a larger part of the thyroglobulin here, okay. Short, sorry, this large thyroglobulin molecule will be released, but you need to understand is this, but suppose this is, let me make it double layer, okay. But this thyroid peroxidase molecule, these thyroid peroxidase molecules which were earlier associated with this vesicle, what will happen is this, these thyroid peroxidase molecules will now associate with the cell membrane of the follicular cells itself, okay. That means here we will be getting many more what, thyroid peroxidase molecules. So this is the this is the actual way by which thyroid peroxidase molecule gets associated with the follicular cell membrane. Clear? Okay, now listen with all your attention. A very important part you need to understand here is this. For the simplicity of this diagram, I will be drawing only one thyroid follicular molecule, thyroid peroxidase molecule, okay. Clear? Now listen with all your attention possible. Now, so far so good, right? We have already discussed what is thyroid peroxidase. Now listen with all your attention. What is its function? We will be dealing with that in just a few moments, okay. Now listen. Now listen with all your attention. Now, a very important point you need to understand is this, that thyroid peroxidase molecule actually have two main functions, okay. Actually performs, this thyroid peroxidase molecule actually performs two main functions. Now what is the first function? Now listen. The first function is the conversion of this iodide into iodine. Conversion of this iodide into iodine molecule. Clear? Conversion of this iodide into iodine molecule, okay. That means this electron is lost, okay. Now for the conversion of this iodide into iodine, for the conversion of this iodide into iodine, this thyroid peroxidase molecule, okay, this thyroid peroxidase molecule requires H2O2 molecule, okay, H2O2, hydrogen peroxide, okay. Now this hydrogen peroxide actually is provided by another protein. This hydrogen peroxide is provided by another protein which is present here, okay. With this protein is known by the name of dual peroxidase, okay. It is called dual peroxidase, okay. Dual peroxidase, dual peroxidase. Clear? I know it is becoming tough for you to this is dual peroxidase. Now listen, we actually use a short acronym for this dual peroxidase. This is DUOX. Now this DUOX protein, what it does is it actually converts oxygen into H2O2, and this H2O2 is actually helpful in the conversion of this iodide into iodine. Clear? Now this H2O2 is actually helpful in the conversion of this iodide into iodine. Clear? Okay. Okay. So this is actually the first function of what? This is actually the first function of thyroid peroxidase, that is the conversion of iodide into iodine. Clear? Now listen with all your attention possible. Okay. Now let me tell you another story which is very important for our discussion, okay. Now what is thyroglobulin? It's a very large protein, but what is the peculiarity of this protein? This protein contains frequent residues of tyrosine molecules. That is, this protein contains, you know, much more amount of tyrosine than any other protein in your body. Clear? So this is the peculiarity of this protein. Now listen, why I am telling this thing. I will be talking about this, you know, thyroglobulin for some time. Now listen, suppose this is thyroglobulin molecule. Okay, this is the C terminal and this is N terminal. Now listen with all your attention. What happens is this, suppose this is, you know, an amino acid. Okay, this is suppose an amino acid, this is another amino acid, and here we will get, you know, here we will get a tyrosine molecule. Now listen, do you know what is tyrosine? Tyrosine is a benzene containing amino acid, right? It's a benzene containing amino acid. But do you know what is the actual, you know, structure of tyrosine? We need this right now. Now listen, the actual structure of tyrosine is this. Okay, let me drop this. Let me sacrifice this diagram as well, because this particular topic is way more important. So this is the structure of, you know, our tyrosine. Now every amino acid start, if you want to draw any amino acid, start with carbon, right? Now these are the inevitable groups in a, you know, amino acid. Now in tyrosine, this R will be replaced by this group. This R will be replaced by this group. Clear? This R will be replaced by this group. Clear? Let us replace it. Okay. Clear? So we have replaced this R with this group. Okay. So this is our tyrosine molecule. Clear? Now a very important point here we need to understand is this. Let us, you know, consider the structure, a simple structure of thyroglobulin. Now listen, suppose this is amino acid. Okay, and this is another amino acid. This is another amino acid. Now here we have got this. Okay, so this is, you know, the peptide bonds here. Okay, so these are the peptide bonds, and here we have got what? Here we have got, okay, let me draw this R structure of, you know, so here we have got clear. Here we have got this tyrosine molecule. Now listen with all your attention. Now listen with all your attention. What happens is this. Now when you are producing, when your body is producing T3, T4 or, you know, thyroid hormones, what it does is it actually, you know, iodinates, your body actually iodinates with the help of many enzymes. Your body iodinates this, you know, benzene ring. Okay, and then these bonds are broken. What your body does is your body will break these bonds, and it will also iodinate this benzene ring. Okay, in particular positions. Clear? Now listen with all your attention. Suppose this is your, you know, structure of thyroglobulin. Okay, now listen with all your attention. Your thyroglobulin molecule contains way more tyrosine molecule than this. Okay, now let me draw. Draw with me so that you can understand. Everyone who is watching this video also draw with me. It's very very important for you to understand right now, because I have seen many people who talk about thyroid hormones, but they don't know how thyroid hormones are produced. Now listen. I have made a mistake, don't worry, I will be correcting it. Okay. I have not drawn the CH2 groups, right? Thank you. I have not drawn the CH2 groups everywhere. Shit. I thought I have drawn in the first one. Okay. Clear? So this is your structure. Suppose this is the supposed structure of your thyroglobulin molecule. Clear? Now listen with all your attention. It's very important for you to understand. Okay. Now if I tell you that this is a thyroglobulin molecule, no doubt about this, you will believe me, right? Now listen with all your attention. What will happen is this iodine which have been produced here. Now listen. Suppose this is the benzene ring, right? Suppose this is the benzene ring here. So this is the first molecule. So first carbon, this is second carbon, third, fourth, fifth and sixth. Now listen with all your attention possible. Now in which carbons iodines will be inserted? That is the first question you need to answer. In which carbons iodines will be inserted? Now listen with all your attention. Iodines are always inserted on the third carbon or the fifth carbon. Either on the third carbon or on the fifth carbon or both. Never on the second and sixth carbon. Listen with all your attention. So either this iodine will be inserted in the third carbon or in the fifth carbon, but never on the second and sixth carbon of benzene ring of tyrosine. Clear? Now let us quickly insert the iodine molecules here. Okay, let us quickly insert the iodine molecules here. Now listen. So now let us attach iodide here. Okay, so suppose in this we are attaching iodide to both the carbons. Here we are attaching to one carbon, here we are attaching to both the carbons, and in this we are attaching to both the carbons. Now listen with all your attention possible. Okay, now a very very interesting part or very very important point you need to understand here is this. Now what will happen is, up to now we have discussed that how these iodines are added. Okay, now a very very important point here we need to understand is this. Now what we will have to do is, we will again have to draw this entire thing here. Why? Because we will be talking about more dangerous things here which is going on. A very strange thing now happens, that is, from here bonds will now break and this whole thing will now transform and attach with this particular molecule. Clear? This is very very important for you to understand. Okay, now what happens is this whole thing now breaks from here, from this bond, and will now get attached with this particular portion of thyroglobulin. Now let me tell you how it will now look like. Okay, now listen with all your attention. Okay, so this is the new formed bond and this is the old Okay, clear? Now listen with all your attention. There are iodine in the third position and fifth position, and here also there are iodine in the third and fifth position. Clear? Okay, now listen with all your attention. Now whatever is left here, it will look like this. Okay, now listen with all your attention. The position from which this benzene ring has been taken, this carbon will now actually have a double bond with this carbon, and therefore from sp3 hybridization this carbon will now have sp2 hybridization. So this is the first tyrosine, this was the first tyrosine, this is the second tyrosine, this is the third tyrosine, and this is the fourth tyrosine, right? Now listen, when the benzene ring of second tyrosine gets attached with the first tyrosine molecule, now what happens is this molecule now is actually losing its benzene ring, and therefore to gain its electron, it will actually form a double bond with the carbon attached just beside it. Okay, now a very important point here we need to understand is this product is now called dihydroalanine. Okay, this product is now called dihydroalanine. Clear? This is dihydroalanine. So this is dihydroalanine. Now listen with all your attention. So again we'll have to draw this third and fourth one. Now listen with all your attention possible. Now at first we will be talking about when this third benzene ring will attach with the fourth benzene ring. Now listen with all your attention. There is a trick here. Okay, when this third benzene ring gets attached with the fourth benzene ring, what will happen is we need more space. Okay, we are facing space problem. Okay, let me draw it, then we can understand. Clear? Okay, oh, sorry. So we were talking about this is the first, this is second, which is converted into dihydroalanine because it has lost its benzene ring. Now this is the third, and now listen with all your attention. Here also we will get what? Dihydroalanine, right? We will get dihydroalanine. Why it is called dihydroalanine? Because if you add another hydrogen, if you convert this sp2 hybridized carbon into sp3 hybridized carbon, that means what you will have to do is you will have to add another H, then it will be converted to CH3. Now this whole thing will now look like alanine, therefore it is dihydroalanine. That means this is actually, this looks like alanine, but it has got one less hydrogen. Clear? Now listen. So here again we have produced another dihydroalanine. Now understand this very carefully. In the first chain we are actually adding 1 and 2, but in the third chain we are adding 3 and 4. Now listen, in the second case what we will do is we will add this fourth with the fifth. That means we will go like this. So this is what? This is our benzene ring, and this is another benzene ring which is attached now. Okay, clear? Now so this is OH group. What we will have to do is this, that we will have to transfer this molecule, this third benzene ring, into the fourth benzene ring. That means we will have to add the third benzene ring to the fourth benzene ring. Now how it will look like? It will look like this, right? I am really sorry for that. There are one iodine, right? Okay, now listen. This is your T3, okay? Now listen with all your attention. I am really sorry for that. You must correct right now, okay? So what you will have to understand is this: when this third benzene ring will connect with the fourth benzene ring, what will happen is this: there are two iodines here, okay, two iodines, and there is one iodine here. right? One iodine here. Clear? Now you need to understand this very basic thing. This is T3, okay? This is T3, and in your body, the most biologically active form of thyroid hormone is what? T3. But you should understand, or you will be amazed to know that the most abundant form of thyroid hormone is T4. Yes, the most biologically active form is T3, but the most abundant form is what? T4. That means what? Your body will convert T4 into T3. That means your body cells on which thyroid hormones will work, they have special enzymes so that they can remove one iodine from here, right? It's so fascinating. Now you know what are the name of these enzymes? They are called deiodinases. There are 3 types of deiodinases. We'll talk about them later, don't worry, in details. Clear? So this is what? Now listen. So if we actually cut these portions, now if we cleave these portions, these bonds, we have got active T4, we have got active T3, right? Now these cleavage of bonds will actually not take place in the follicular lumen or follicle. It will actually take place in the follicular cell. That means after modification of thyroglobulin, this modified thyroglobulin will now re-enter into the follicular cell and they will be activated. And they will be cleaved. They will be cleaved, and so that the active form of active form of T3 and T4 hormones can now come into the blood vessels. Clear? Okay. Now another case we need to understand here is this. Now what happens if we join this molecule, this 4th benzene ring with the 3rd benzene ring? Okay. If we join this 4th benzene ring with the 3rd benzene ring, what will happen? Let us draw. Now listen. We are joining the 4th benzene ring with the 3rd benzene ring, right? That means it will look like this, right? It will look like this, right? Now listen, this molecule is called, this is actually biologically inactive molecule, though it looks like T3, but it is actually not T3. Though it is T3, but it is actually not T3. This is called reverse T3. This is called reverse T3 or RT3. RT3 is biologically inactive molecule, clear? But it stays in our blood vessels for long time, in our blood for long. Therefore, RT3 is also used for what? Evaluation of thyroid hormone levels in our body. Clear? Okay. So what is reverse T3 and what is the difference between reverse T3 and so this is what? Reverse T3. And what is the difference between reverse T3 and real T3? Okay, so this is reverse T3 and this is real T3. How it looks like? Now listen. The real T3 looks like this. That means in a real T3 or in a active T3 form, the last benzene ring will contain only 1 iodine. But in reverse T3, the last benzene ring will contain 2 iodines. Okay, clear? Now we will see how this whole thing is taken up by this follicular cell and how actually these bonds are broken down. Okay, now listen with all your attention. You need not to go through many books, just understand this very basic thing. Okay, now what happens is this: after modification, after this whole modification, this will be taken up by clathrin coated vesicles. Okay, this will be taken up by clathrin coated vesicles. You already know how these clathrin coated vesicles are produced and how they retract these molecules which are present outside the cells. Okay, now these clathrin coated vesicles will now take up this whole modified thyroglobulin molecule, and these clathrin coated molecules will be now acted upon by lysosomes. They will be acted upon by lysosomes. Okay, and in the lysosomes there are degrading enzymes, and these enzymes will actually cleave these areas, cleave these bonds. Okay, they will cleave these bonds so that active T3, active T4 and reverse T3 can now enter bloodstream. Clear? Okay. So now let us quickly find out that how this thing occurs inside the follicular cell. That means, now listen, suppose this is your this will be what? Future T4, right? There are 4 iodines. This is what? Future future T3. Okay. Now what is this? This is future of India. This will be, future reverse T3, right? Now listen with all your attention. There are many, benzene rings which are actually, modified like this, okay? They have only one iodine or two iodines. Now listen. There are many benzene rings which are actually modified like this. Suppose one iodine has been added, but they are not, they have not actively participated in, conjugation step. Now what is conjugation? Conjugation is actually, transfer of this benzene molecule from a particular tyrosine molecule to another tyrosine molecule. That is conjugation step. Now there are many, benzene ring which may not have, participated in conjugation. That means they may have one iodine or two iodine molecules. Now listen, when this whole thing is taken up, and they are, taken up by what? They are taken up by, lysosome. Now listen, they are acted upon by lysosome. Okay, what happens is this whole molecule, that is, suppose this is what, non-conjugated, benzene ring having two iodines. This is called DIT, diiodotyrosine. Okay, diiodothyronine. Sorry, and suppose there are, non-conjugated benzene molecules having what? Having only single molecule of iodine. This is called MIT, not Massachusetts Institute of Technology. This is monoiodothyronine. Okay, and there will be what? There will be these molecules having 4 iodine, right? This is what? T4. Okay, and there will be molecules like this which will be having molecules like this, right? This is what? This is T3, right? So there will be, molecules which are T3, T4, DIT, MIT and reverse T3 which are released by the help of the enzymes which are released by what? Lysosome, lysosomal degrading enzymes. Okay, clear? Now listen, special transporter mechanisms or special transporter proteins are available. Special transporter proteins are now available which will actually, transfer these T4, T3 and all these things. This will transfer T4, T3, RT3 from follicular cells to the blood. Okay, T4, T3, RT3. Okay, now a very important point here you need to understand is this is called, this transporter protein is called MCT or monocarboxylate transporter. Monocarboxylate transporter. Okay, MCT or monocarboxylate transporter, MCT8. Okay, this will be MCT8, monocarboxylate transporter protein number 8. So this is, what? This is your MCT8 protein. Okay, clear? So this is actually, the transfer of T3, T4 and RT3, but MIT and DIT will actually now join together to form reverse T3 or T3. Then they can be, transferred from follicular cell to the blood vessel. Okay, clear? Okay, so this is actually, the production and secretion of thyroid hormones. Next we will be talking about the biological activity and functions of thyroid hormone and the role of TSH in, these things. Now listen, if you want to know the real role of TSH, now listen, in every step which I have discussed till now, in every step TSH helps. In the uptake of iodine or trapping of iodine, in the conjugation of iodine, in every step TSH helps. That is, thyroid stimulating hormone helps. Clear? Okay.